Hello, my name is Roman 𝐿-𝐤𝐒𝐢𝐜𝐢𝐥𝐢𝐜, and this is a lecture about C3 Sicilian, a Lapid variation of Sicilian. Now, I was asked many times in the earlier years if someone had to learn one opening overnight for white to play, what would it be? And I reshuffled all the openings and I said, maybe King's Indian attack, knight f3, d3, g3, but that's not really an opening. It's like playing on your half of the board without engaging in any contact. But real opening, if you want to learn overnight, the easiest is to learn C3 Sicilian. Against Sicilian, to go C3. But now, of course, black has various different options here, and I want to cover them. Well, when you learn Sicilian for entry level only, you can learn overnight. You know principles, what to do, what not to do, and if you obey them, you're going to be okay in the opening. But this is a little different. If you want to learn on that level, I don't think you need this lecture. This lecture it's not for the highest level maybe, but it's for little more than entry level. On C3 here, black has several continuations. E6 or knight f6 or d6 or d5, even g6. So the two absolutely main lines are d5 or knight f6. Let's look at them in random order. d5, ed, queen takes d5, and d4. Black has to continue development. CD move is kind of a mistake because allows white after c takes d, quick knight c3, developing knight and attacking queen on d5. This is not the move that can be recommended. e5 can be met with knight f3 or even d takes e. Knight f3 is good too. On e4, knight c3, and on bishop b4, knight e5, followed by bishop c4. This is not something black wants to play. And if black plays, for example, knight c6, then after knight f3, they have difficulties to meet knight c3 move. Something like bishop g4 will be met by knight c3, attacking the queen, and taking the knight on f3 is not recommended. Well, one possibility white has, knight takes d5, bishop takes d1, knight c7 check, knight takes a8, bishop g4, and f3, followed by bishop f4. According to computer, this is better for white. But the other variation that been played several times, and it's clearly better for white, is after bishop takes f3, is to play gf. This is bad, really bad position for black, because if queen takes d4, after queen takes d4, knight takes d4, and knight b5, knight c2 check, king d1, and white, either king d7 or king d8, white takes the rook on a8. White has very big, nearly winning advantage. This all covered in any opening book where c3 is mentioned, Sicilian c3, and I don't really feel like going through all of these unimportant variations and waste time for that. let's get to something that is really essential. So C takes D is not a good idea because allows early knight C3 for white. So black has to develop. Knight F6. Well, possibilities are knight C6, E5, and none of them give a really clear equality to black. Now, to begin with E5, after D takes E, queen takes D1. Well, if you play queen takes E5, then we're going to get symmetrical pawn structure and white at least 2 tempos ahead in development. It's not a good idea. Knight F3 is coming with a tempo, and if you play bishop G4, I don't know, bishop E3 may be played, bishop takes E2, queen takes E2, and the other piece is going to be developed with a tempo. It's not the way to play chess. You cannot start playing with black with a tempo down as you play black and lose 2 more tempos in first 5, 6 moves. That's a wrong way to play. And since it's not about the basics of game of chess, we just go on with moves that make sense. Well, if knight C6, then we go knight F3, and CD, CD, bishop G4 will transpose to the position we just saw, and otherwise E6 can be played. Well, let me tell you something about E6 move. The easy way for white to get little advantage and bypass all the complicated variations, well, there are moves like bishop D3 or main move bishop E2, but there is one way is for a lazy boy way, for lazy chess player, not really only lazy chess player. Spassky played like this. Although he was lazy, he did not play it out of laziness. Knight A3 is a very famous maneuver in C3 Sicilian. The idea, white wants to play knight C2 to support D4 pawn on knight B5. On C takes D, of course, white is not going to retake back. They're going to go knight B5, threatening fork on F7, and later on take on D4 with B5 knight. After a move like queen D7, sometimes they play queen D7 hoping to play B6, or queen D8. Queen D8 may also have certain problems after bishop F4. CD is not a good idea, and if knight F6, then we can go knight B5, and after queen D8, now we can simply play bishop E3, attacking C5. This is a good idea, or maybe even better is to play bishop E3 right away, because in the order of knight B5, queen D8, bishop E3, black may go A6. So why don't we play bishop E3, attacking C5 pawn? C5 pawn is attacked now, because when we take, bishop cannot take back. And also there is a possibility of playing bishop C4. You have a variety of variations that will give you very comfortable position. Well, bishop E3, for example, and bishop E7. After knight B5, black already may be in serious trouble, because knight C7 check is threatened, and if queen goes back, D takes C. Move like H6, preventing knight B5, allows knight C4. Now knight B6 is threatening, so it's also quite uncomfortable for black. Those are the easy ways to play for white. White is always out of trouble, and it's very simple. They are not behind in development. They have control in the center, and there is no reason why they shouldn't be a little better in this position. So going to ED queen takes d5, when we go d4, knight f6 is more accurate move order, and after knight f3, e6. There is possibility of playing bishop g4. Well, maybe black wants to go bishop g4 and then e6, let the bishop out on more active position. Then knight d2 and bishop c4 gives white very comfortable position. After e6, bishop c4 is possible. And on queen d6, knight b3. This position is clearly better. I'm not saying much better for white, but it's clearly better. Knight takes d4, and on queen c7, we can go attacking the bishop. Bishop d3. Bishop d3 is comfortable, and on a6, we simply castle. And this is interesting position. I analyzed this position, and I came up together with my companion, Rivka, I came up with very interesting idea that's been never played before. Suggestion for white. Actually, after castling on 11th move, black plays knight d7. There were games like that. And now we're going to go h3. This sounds very unusual. And on bishop h5, rook e1, those moves are very usual, but the idea is very unusual. And on bishop e7, g4, bishop g6, it looks like beginner is playing for white. But in reality, this is very strong continuation. And now knight g5. All of a sudden, you realize that it's not easy to play for black. Black cannot castle queenside because of potential. Well, I may go queen f3 first and f7 will be hanging. There is maybe even knight takes f7 good enough, allowing rook takes h3 and knight takes e6, or maybe even taking rook. It's not clear what black has on king's side. But also this simple move, queen f3, will create quite a few problems for black. But if white doesn't castle queenside, they have to castle kingside. The knight is placed very well on g5. Possibility of knight takes e6, and also the same queen f3 and bishop f4 idea. White has, in my opinion, very promising position. Well, there it is, some new idea that you can play and try it. And since I cannot try it, and I'm not playing the game of chess anymore, so you can try it, and this is quite interesting. Well, I recommend to explore it, and I'm sure you find some very, very interesting positions. Now, going back after e4, c5, c3, black can play d6. This variation was very popular at times. d4, knight f6, and I remember playing it all the time for black. Knight f6. What is the idea of this variation? Attacking e4 pawn for now. If d takes c, of course black cannot take on e4 because of queen a4 check, winning the knight. And black cannot take on c5 because this position is very difficult for black. f3 and e4 controls the center, c5 pawn is weak, and black cannot castle. This is clear and comfortable advantage for white. Although this variation is very interesting for black. They go knight c6. And now they want to take on e4. So white has choices to play c takes d, but then knight takes e4. I had this couple of times with white, and once they played d takes e with me, and then I took on d1, and I remember bishop takes e7 is good here, and believe it or not, knight takes f2 is also good. Although white is going to win this knight on h1, black is going to have very quick development. This is not something I would recommend you to play for black, and I will show you in a moment why. And this is not something I would recommend you to play for white. It sounds illogical, but let me explain that. I would not recommend you to play this variation for white because black has options here. For example, on c takes d, knight takes e4, as I already mentioned, position is quite good for black if black simply plays bishop takes e7 and knight f2. This is why I wouldn't recommend it for white. But why I wouldn't recommend for black, I will show you when I show you how to play for white this position. Also on knight c6, if you go f3, now d5 is very strong. And after ed, knight takes d5. And black is going to have very interesting compensation. This position also has been played several times. I played it and I found it very, very promising for black. And as well, there were many other games. But the best way to play for white will explain why I will not recommend to play this for black. The best way is, of course, bishop d3. What you do here, you simply hold on to a center. You have very strong center, and you don't want white to shake your center. So after bishop d3, suppose knight c6. Then we protect the d4 pawn, and we do it by playing knight e2. I don't want to go knight f3 because black may play cd, cd, and bishop g4, and somehow keep putting pressure on d4. I want my d4 square to be protected permanently. Knight e2. Now bishop g4 is pointless because of f3. So you have secure center. If e6, castle, bishop e7. Same thing white would do if black decided to fianchetto, which we're going to look in a second. Now we're going to go h3. Idea of h3 is to go bishop e3 to prevent knight g4. h3 castle, bishop e3. It's very quiet position, but I don't understand why would someone on a reasonably good level would want to play it for black. Black doesn't have any concrete plan, and white completely dominates in the center. So there is no upside of playing this position. There is downside that you have no space and no play, but there is no upside. So this is clearly better for white and easy to play. One detail here, this is an important thing. The white is better here even if black plays cd, cd, and knight b4. Now black is going to get white's d3 bishop. But even this position is clearly better for white. But if you're worried about losing the light square bishop for a knight, I don't think you should. If you're worried about that, you can deal with it as well. In this position, we played knight e2. Black cannot go CD, CD, and knight b4 yet, because after queen a4 check, they simply lose the game. Well, they don't lose the game, but white has much better position because now queen a5 has to be played. Actually, they do lose the game in b4. This is not a good way to play. And if black plays e6 and we castle, now they go bishop e7, still knight b4 was not possible here. Go a3 and permanently eliminate option for black to play c takes d, and knight b4. Same principles apply if black decides to go g6. We go h3 to stop knight g4 or bishop g4. Then we go knight e2, castle, castle, knight c6. And if you are willing to prevent exchange of light square and bishop, then go a3. If not, then just simply continue development. This is clearly better position for white. So this is something you would want to play. That's what I would recommend to play on the second move d6, and if d4, knight f6. Don't get involved with f3 variation, with d takes c variation. You don't need these complications because, first of all, I don't think any of these variations give clear advantage to white. And secondly, it's not up to you to get these complications. So you don't need it. Bishop d3, you already have clear advantage. So that's what I would recommend. So this will conclude part 1 of our C3 Sicilian. Well, in a part 2, we're going to be discussing one of other main moves, which is knight f6. Actually, knight f6, I would say, may be the most popular response to a c3. So I will see you very soon with a part 2. Thank you.